Hello everyone, and welcome back to Winter 89 Colors. Today I'm going to be just coloring a PDF on this little guy here from the link that I will post down in the description. It's just a print off from a free website that I got, but I thought it would be really nice to do something Halloween related and in real time. As you'll notice, I got some new editing software. Yay me for upping my technology. So today's going to be a bit of an experiment. I'm going to try to do a bit of a voiceover over this one instead of trying to talk you through it while I'm coloring. So this is just going to be part one. I'm just going to start with some Ohuhu markers and kind of walk you through how I do my base coat. I mean, it's pretty simple. Obviously, it's just block coloring, but I can show you a few things about how I get the markers a little even, why some places I don't bother trying to get them even, things like that. If some of the colors don't make sense also, I might explain why I've chosen that color. So sit down, strap in, and hopefully we get this figured out. So as you can see, I've forgotten to, there we go. I'm going to show you the color number there. Also, I'll try to put these on the screen if I get a chance for you. But yeah, so I'm starting out with this color here, this nice dark green. Those feet were actually a mistake. I wasn't planning on doing them that dark green, but we can roll with it anyway. They're the bottom of his feet, so maybe they are a little bit darker. Who knows? So I'm using this slightly darker mint green to do some of the more shady areas of his body, such as the inside of his ears, the bottom of his feet, things like that. And I'm using the brush tip in order to try and create the smoothest coat possible. If you get it while it's still wet, as you can see as I did just there, it will really make a nice smooth block color. I'm doing his little nails there too. Sorry if I'm a little out of frame here. I'm still getting used to filming. Bear with me, I do figure it out pretty quickly, and it'll happen less and less throughout the video, so just maintain your patience with me, and let's keep working on this. Yep, so now we're moving on to the lighter green, and in this I'll be doing the rest of his little body and his face. Again, using the brush tip to try and create some nice even strokes. There we go, now I'm zooming, I'm figuring it out. Don't mind me, folks. All right, so notice I use nice, small, even strokes, constantly like turning the brush too, because I find that if you put too much pressure on one side, it does start to bend and stay that way. So I like to try and switch it up as much as I can to keep the brush evenly worn. Using light strokes, and if I need to, I can always add a second coat to help even out the color. I'm going to keep turning the page because I find it's much easier to get nice even strokes with alcohol if you are making sure you're keeping the page comfortably within your hand and you can keep the strokes going smoothly. Trying to work around the paper can sometimes be a little bit tougher with alcohol markers, so I find that I'm going to be twirling this page around. Hopefully I don't make anybody too seasick. Anyway, so I do have the 216 set of Ohuhus. I believe they're now called Honolulu. I'm not sure if they were when I first bought them, but they were fairly new as far as the brush tips go. They are all still working really well for me. I enjoy them very much. There I go off screen again. But I do really love using them for basing. Also, sometimes I just use them in smaller pieces on their own. I use them to shade and then add my highlights and everything else. So they are really fun to work with. They take a bit of getting used to if you're used to water-based markers, but I like them so much more because they do blend just absolutely brilliantly. So that just makes for a nice smooth base coat in a lot of cases. So this particular picture that I printed out is done with inkjet ink, and it is on basic copy paper. It's very thin, almost translucent. Has almost no tooth to it. I mean, maybe the tiniest little bit, just because it's very cheap copy paper. I wanted to do this on that kind of paper, mostly because I wanted you guys to be able to relate in case you don't have access to really good printing quality items. So I just printed this off using the cheapest stuff I had and wanted to see how it was going to go from there so that you guys would all have access to it. Obviously, not all of you are going to have Ohuhu markers. That was a gift to myself a couple of years ago. But if you have cheaper alcohol markers, I'm sure you can get a similar effect. And if not, well, then you can base with whatever works best for you, or not base at all, and you can skip to using your pencils or whatever it is that you choose to use on this. If you're following along, I just wanted to say thank you, and I appreciate it. So here you can see I'm using the broad chisel tip to try and fill in some of these little gaps that were left when I didn't quite get the even strokes. By using extremely light brushing motions, I can generally get a little bit of evenness after the fact in these blotchy areas. So that's nice because the alcohol will reactivate itself a little bit if you add more. Some people will use a colorless blender for this, but I find that makes it just a little bit patchy in areas. So I use my colorless blender more for blending pencils and watercolor pencils more than I do actually alcohol markers. I find just adding more of the same color on top makes it a little bit darker, but also makes it a little bit more even. So that's kind of a nice way to do things. Yeah, you'll see my strokes are super light, barely touching the paper, and that just helps to blend in those bits of alcohol and keep things moving, so that's nice. And here we're going to be moving on to the next color, so I guess we should have a look at that. Perfect. So we're going to use a warm gray color, and that's going to be the base for his little robe, shall we call it. Once again, off camera, good job, Winter, you're doing great here. Don't worry, folks, I'll get used to it. But yeah, so I'm just going to keep going, and it's going to be all the same thing. I will meet back with you when I get closer to the background, because that I have a little bit more explaining to do. The rest is all just your basic basings. So, all right, Winter out. I will see you closer to the end. Oh, and one more note here, guys. I'm not going to be putting any music to this for two reasons. One, I am lazy, and two, you guys can put in your own music if you want to, by all means. I mean, you like whatever you're going to play better than what I can select, so have fun with that. All right, see you later. And I'm back, folks. So we are now at the background stage, and I just wanted to explain a little bit what I'm doing with this one. So this is going to be the longest part of it. Obviously, we're going to be filling out a really large space here with alcohol markers, which isn't always the wisest idea. Sometimes these big wide spaces can be really tricky and streaky. So the only reason I'm doing it is because I have a plan to deal with that. So I'm using the brush tip to make sure all the pieces that are, you know, in there are nice and even, all these little spaces. And I'll do the same to make sure I don't overlap any lines in all of the other areas that I'm going for around the lettering, etc. But I'm going to go right over all these other little decals in the background, the bats, the stars, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to just alcohol right over them because I have plans to use embellishments and sparkles and things like that on those later. So I don't really care if they are alcoholed right over, and that's fine. So it's going to be real streaky and real ugly. I'm going to try to make it as even as I can, but I'm not going to try too hard because I'm going to be doing so much on the background over top using pencils, embellishments, etc. And plus, not to mention, backgrounds typically aren't super even, and it looks very, you know, generated if it is. So I don't mind it being a little bit blotchy, a little bit streaky. But yeah, so I'm going to leave you here, and you can watch the rest of the video if you'd like to, but the thing is, this is pretty much just going to be the longest part of the video, and I'm going to leave you to it. And this will be the end of part 1. So I will come back with another part later to make sure that you can see what I do with my pencils and embellishments. I don't know if this will be a 2 or 3 part video, but thank you again for watching. Please enjoy the rest, and make sure you leave a like and a comment, and I will see you in the next one. Winter out.